Hello, I hope you're all well. For this session, you're going to be learning about strengthening and reinforcing different materials. When you did the gadget case back in Year 9 at the start of the year, we had to think about different ways we could make the fabrics good and strong in order to protect the electronic gadget inside. So that's kind of linking in with this project, but this covers all kinds of materials, not just textiles ones. Your learning objective for this session is to understand how materials can be enhanced. That means, things added to them or taken away or restructured to help them resist and work with forces and stresses to improve functionality. So how can we make things better and stronger to help them work even more than they do? And the 5 main forces, just as a reminder, hopefully you've been looking at this in lockdown. This has been some of the work I have set. Torsion means to twist, okay, so it's all about a twisting force. Tension is a pulling force. Shearing is where the forces go across a material, so scissors, for instance, is a shear force. Compression is where you squeeze something, like a pushing force. And the last one is bending, where you have forces at different angles. Okay, so a bookshelf full of heavy books has a bending force because it's sort of being bent usually in the middle. Okay, so how do different materials cope with these forces is what we're going to focus on. By the end of this session, you should be able to name one way a material is reinforced. That's what everyone should be able to do. Give one example of how we can reinforce a material. Most of you will give reasons, hopefully, as to why a material is reinforced. What are the benefits? What's the point in doing so? And lastly, the more challenging work is for some of you to hopefully name several ways and be able to give several examples of the materials that are reinforced. So just to get you thinking and start you off, one piece of thin card, A4 size, which you can see in the black picture there, how much would it be able to hold? What weight would you expect it to hold? So have a think about these different things. Would it hold the weight of a hamster? Would it hold the weight of a laptop? Would it hold the weight of a watermelon? Or would it hold the weight of the average adult? Or could it hold something smaller? Have a think. This is a bit of there's a trick question to this, because if you think about a flat piece of card, it's obviously going to hold things differently to if you create some kind of structure to this. So just have a think. Obviously you can't really test these things out, and your predictions regarding holding the weight of an adult, I imagine, are pretty obvious. But have a think about this, and think about if you could make the paper stronger, the card stronger, what could you do? Well, here's one of the answers. So how is cardboard strengthened and reinforced? Well, there's a nice example here of a sort of case study on the left-hand side there of a New Zealand company that basically have created cardboard desks. So you buy the flat pack version. In the bottom left-hand photograph here, you can see a man carrying a flat pack box. Okay. Then, once it's been constructed nice and easily, because it's already got the pieces ready and shaped, and there's holes where there needs to be, it can actually hold the weight of an average adult. It only weighs 6.5 kilograms, that's like 6.5 bags of sugar. But actually it can hold the weight of an average adult, which is a lot more, all because of how it's structured. If you look at the photograph, you can see that there is a lot of careful measurement that has taken place, working out where the force will be applied. So he is stood in the middle, and you've got some bending going on there. Okay, so that's your bending force. He's compressing down on it, which is kind of creating the bending. But because of how he's balanced, because of where they've got the table legs, and because of probably some reinforced cardboard, this isn't just a thin piece of card, this is your corrugated. Corrugated means sort of wobbly lines. You can see it in the middle photograph there, sort of greenish photograph. You can see that the cardboard has several layers, which instantly is going to make it stronger, and you end up with where you've got the wibbly wobbly line, which is what makes corrugated card, that happens to make it stronger. It also adds an insulating property. So for food packaging, keeping the food hotter for longer, your pizza boxes, for instance, they will be made using this kind of cardboard. Most packaging, if you think about your Amazon boxes that are coming through, particularly if it's an item that they are over packaging, as they often do, it very often involves corrugated card. Okay, and it's that crimping, it's the layers that create the structure of adding strength. Even helmets there, you've got a helmet made of cardboard. Can you believe that? As well as making cardboard stronger for different uses, we often need to make textile products stronger too. And here's a variety of ways, some of which you will have used in past projects, that we can make textile products stronger. Okay, so hopefully you are able to pause this, make notes and write this down, as well as you hopefully have done with the corrugated card. So we can laminate fabrics together, which basically means to layer them up. Okay, if you look at the quilting diagram there, you can see 3 different layers. The middle layer is usually a padding layer. It's like a really rough version of cotton wool known as wadding. And the wadding helps to trap heat and warmth, making something softer and warmer. And on the outer layers you would put something possibly that's waterproof, or something that's soft to the skin, great for a jacket or a sleeping bag, cushions perhaps, eiderdowns, covers for your bedding, all quite decorative but also padded and nice and comfy. Okay, you can make fabrics stronger by adding boning and ribs. If you've been watching the Sewing Bee, they've been recently making, well, one of the episodes shows that they have to make something involving boning, which is basically long pieces of plastic or metal that help to keep the shape of a corset. So ball gowns involve a lot of this, and if fashion is something that you're thinking about as a career one day, it's worth having a look at this. Okay, so it's corsetry. If you have a look at that on the internet, you'll get some ideas of how a product is made stronger using a process called boning. Stiffening is where collars and cuffs, anything that you want to hold its shape, usually in a shirt, you would bond a piece of interfacing to it. So very often they have a layer of glue. Once it's ironed, that sticks to your fabric, making it stronger. Okay, so very useful for shirt collars and shirt cuffs. Other ways to make textiles fabrics stronger, usually for safety in this case, or for a performance reason like sport, we might use webbing. Webbing is like a very thick strap fabric, a bit like a belt, and it's used to make various products really, really strong. In the case of seat belts, that's obviously for safety. Tightly woven means there's no stretch, there's nothing loose there, and it won't fray easily or come undone and unravel. Very often a very strong material would be chosen, such as nylon, polyester or Kevlar. Kevlar is a modern material that you would have learned about last week, or technical textiles. It's incredibly bulletproof and what have you. So you've got a really strong seatbelt there in the bottom left-hand photograph. And then you've got a military style bag with adjustable straps, and it's those adjustable straps and the belt there on the waist, which would have been made using webbing fabric. Really, really strong, designed to carry very heavy belongings and not rub against the user. So, you know, you've got a bit of comfort, but you haven't got something that's going to keep breaking, like school bags, for instance, often do when they've been overloaded with too many books. You wouldn't get that if you were using a really strong webbing fabric. In the bottom right hand side there, you've got 2 types of sportswear used for performance, you know, for running or for being more aerodynamic, what have you. And this is achieved by adding elastic fibres. When you're making the fabric, you would blend in some elastic or elastane fibres, which give you stretch. And I'm sure you've all got clothing that involves some elastane. Okay, so lots of reasons why these different products are reinforced or changed. Wood, we know if it's bent, is snapped easily, and it's because it's made of fibres. But there's all kinds of ways that you can shape it. As you can see in the diagrams there, you can layer it, you can cut bits out, you can make it layered with glue and different bits of wood, all adding to its strength. Okay, plywood is a manufactured board please remember we do need to know about other material areas, not just textiles. So these are the typical kind of questions that you will get in your exam paper. You know, how would you make wood stronger, for instance? Lamination, which I've already mentioned, takes place with wood as well. You can see there that's how that chair has been created to be curved. If you were to do that without treating the wood, without layering it with very thin layers and an adhesive, it would snap at this stage because of how tight the angles are. Metals are the strongest material, they really are. Now, it's very hard to think, why would I need to reinforce a material such as metal? But it is done for incredibly strong structures, such as this sort of scaffolding that you can see in the photograph there. So by adding what's called a brace, so those crossbars, you're making something even stronger. Even though that that structure clearly has rivets all over, that means bolts, you know, to hold everything in place. It's made with an incredibly strong metal such as steel or iron. It still needed bracing. Okay, so possibly it's part of a big bridge carrying lots of heavy traffic. Okay, so that crossway that looks like it's got ladders, that's called bracing. You can shape the metal to add strength. You can add ribs along the way. Those lines that you can see in the bottom right hand side here are a way of adding extra strength. Metal is also used to strengthen other materials. So in the bottom right hand side there you can see, a bit like we've looked at recently with the composites, or we will look at composites, you can see some metal bars have been set inside the concrete, making it really, really strong. I mean, concrete's strong as it is. It's got incredible tensile strength. It can't be set on fire. It can't disintegrate with water, but it also, I suppose, can be knocked down. The metal obviously prevents that happening. By curving metal, so if you look at that chair, you can see it looks like it's made out of pipes, you know, water pipes. They've been curved on the corners and structured in such a way that that would not break. It would take an awful lot to break that chair. So sometimes bending a material actually makes it stronger, and that's definitely the case of metal. As we know, plastics are quite notorious for snapping depending on their thickness and the type of material that has been used to make that plastic. Some plastics are stronger than others, some will be thicker than others, some will have different properties, and it's all dependent on what the scientist or the engineer has decided would be the outcome for that particular plastic. If you look at the diagrams here, you can see some have been gently shaped or bent, some have been laminated where you've got different layers. Obviously that adds to the strength. Some will have been moulded in certain ways. Some have had bolts and fastenings added to them to make them even stronger, to reinforce them. Something as simple as a nail in some wood is a way of reinforcing some strength, and of course this can apply to plastic with screws, with little pins and all sorts of things that you can add. Okay. Here is a really good detailed diagram of a chair. I think it's an IKEA chair. Really well used. They last a long time, very, very popular, very successful product. It's been well explained as to why the designer has chosen the different materials, some of which have been reinforced. Remember, that's our learning objective. How have they been strengthened? How have they been reinforced? You have a read. Pause this now, please. Read it and work out all the different ways this product has been reinforced, please. Some materials are actually made weaker in order to allow them to function. So here is a model kit in the photograph, and you can see that it's actually been made weaker in parts. Have a think about what the manufacturer has done in order to make those little parts pop out. I think it's to like make a model plane kit. And here is a task for you to have a quick look at. There are two photographs of textile products that have been reinforced. See if you can work out what has been done to them. Okay, I have labelled them. So you've got textiles tape there, otherwise known as gaffer tape, and you've also got motorcycle bike jeans. Have a good look at the diagrams, the photographs, and work out what you think has been done and why. What are the benefits? Have a think about that. And as a plenary, there is a question sheet, a Word document on Show My Homework, if you can work your way through that. When I set the next test, there will be questions on reinforcing and strengthening materials, so please make sure you know this. It could also come up in your real exam when you sit those. Thank you and good luck.